Hello everyone, the Crime Life channel is with you. In this video, you will learn about the case of Susan Kunhausen. This day, September 6, 2006, was supposed to be unremarkable for Susan Kunhausen, but not only did she remember it for the rest of her life, but also made her a local celebrity. Providence Medical Center in Portland, Oregon, where Susan worked for 30 years, she returned home after another shift at the hospital. The curtains were drawn in the room, which seemed very unusual. Susan went into the kitchen where she found a note from her husband Michael on the microwave. The man wrote that he had gone to the beach and would be back in a couple of days. At that moment, the security alarm went off. Susan went to the front door to turn it off. The weather was clear and warm outside, and the woman decided to look into her mailbox located at the gate. It was 6:37 p.m. on the clock. After reviewing the correspondence, Susan intended to change the nurse's uniform for home clothes and went to the bedroom for this. As soon as she crossed the threshold of the room, she saw a man jump out from behind the door with a hammer in his hand. Without saying a word, he attacked her. The first blow landed on the woman's left temple. Providence medical staff regularly took self-defense courses because they often had to deal with people under the influence of various substances. Susan also attended these events, however. By her own admission, she was not sure that this knowledge would ever help her. Having sore knees and considerable excess weight, the woman did not take seriously the opportunity to rebuff someone. But shocked by the attack in her own home, Sue remembered that in such a situation, she was recommended to reduce the distance to the attacker as much as possible in order to deprive him of the opportunity to brandish a weapon. Susan went on the attack and pinned the killer with her own body against the pink walls of the bedroom. "Wow, you're strong." That would be the only thing the woman heard that evening from the man who wanted to kill her. The hammer used in the attack Kunhausen was able not only to pin the attacker against the wall, but also to grab the hammer from him. The woman managed to hit him several times on the head, demanding that he tell her why he came to her house. The killer managed to snatch the weapon from her hands. Then Susan grabbed him by the throat with all her might. "Who sent you here?" she persisted. The attacker began to choke. His face turned purple. Susan was afraid of the consequences and tried to escape. He caught up with her in the hallway and knocked her to the floor. "He was standing over me with a hammer," Kunhausen later said. "I looked at him and thought I was going to die today." But in those split seconds, the woman made a decision that eventually saved her. Susan decided to bite the attacker so that the police could link the killer to her death by the traces of teeth. Susan Kunhausen shows a photo of the hammer she was attacked with. Gathering her remaining strength, Susan rushed to the killer and bit him sharply on the arm, then on the thigh. From surprise, he turned out to be disoriented. Taking advantage of the moment, the woman knocked him down and sat on top of him. Susan started strangling the offender again. "Tell me who sent you here, and I'll call you a freaking ambulance!" she screamed. He didn't answer, and then he went limp. Kunhausen grabbed a hammer and ran to her neighbor Anne. She immediately called 911. An ambulance arrived and pronounced the attacker dead. In the basement of the house, the police found his backpack, and in it, a diary. On the sheet with the date September 4th, 2006, it says, "Call Mike," and Michael Kunhausen's number is indicated. The diary found in the killer's backpack, the attacker turned out to be 59-year-old Edward Huffey. Having fought in Vietnam in the past, the man chose for himself not the honorable old age of a combat officer, but a crooked path. 15 years before the attack on Susan, Huffey organized the murder of his girlfriend, for which he spent 9 years in prison. After being released, he met Michael Kunhausen, who got him a job in his shop. Huffey's autopsy showed that there was an almost lethal dose of drugs in his system at the time of the attack. Upon learning that Susan had survived, Mike went on the run. He was detained on September 13th, a week after the incident. He categorically denied that he had hired Huffey to eliminate his wife. But the police already had a witness who said that Kunhausen had promised him $5,000 if he would help Huffey in the attack. he refused. Mike promised the killer $50,000 himself. In addition, detectives found out that there were no signs of forced entry in the house, and the alarm was turned off for a while Susan was at work. The police believed that this was how Michael let Huffy in and then went to the beach to create an alibi. While investigating the twists and turns of the couple's relationship, the police learned that Susan had expressed a desire to divorce Mike after 17 years of marriage. But if someone now thought that the man ran to the killer out of resentment, then this is not so. The point, as often happens, is the financial side of life. In case of divorce, the house, the one where everything happened, would have to be divided, and Mike would not be able to live there. In addition, he learned that Susan had indicated her own brother as the recipient in her life insurance policy. So it turns out that Kunhausen hoped to save the house and take revenge on his quick-witted wife with the help of Huffy. On August 30th, 2007, Michael pleaded guilty to incitement to murder. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Later, the term was reduced to 8 years for good behavior. A year later, Susan, now Walters, sued him for $1 million. In support of the claims, she said that she did not want Kunhausen to have at least some money, and he could try to organize a second attempt. Continuing to be afraid of her ex-husband, Susan moved into a new house, installed a new alarm button, and covered the approaches to the house with gravel in order to hear the approach of those approaching the dwelling. She also started training at a shooting range nearby. On September 14, 2014, Michael Kunhausen was supposed to be released from prison, but fate took pity on the heroic woman and gave her the opportunity to continue her life without fear and apprehension. Kunhausen died in the zone from prostate cancer 92 days before his release. Susan, 10 years after the assassination attempt, Susan, having recovered from her experience, began social activities. She gave many interviews where she told her story and tried to convey to people that it is necessary to fight in any situation. The police often invite a woman to give lectures on protection during attacks. In 2017, in collaboration with the District Attorney's Office, a website dedicated to supporting victims of crime was developed. According to the latest information, Susan intends to write a book about her story.